Hello, everyone. For the people that haven't seen me yet, my name is Daniela, and I'm with the Philips Horticulture LED Solutions. And so today you're joining our first webinar about our low energy tomato trial for year-round production with a lower heat input. And today I have with me some guest speakers, the guides of the tour. Let me introduce you to, oh wait, I have a few comments. Yeah, one thing. So what we will do is we will record this session so that the people who weren't able to attend, we can send the recording afterwards. And at the end, we will have a Q&A. And with this Q&A, you will have the possibility to ask any questions, even some personal ones if you want. But so leave your questions to the end and you can type them in the chat. We have someone moderating the chat, so that person will also be able to read your questions and then put them in at the very end. So then I'll swap the camera and I'll move over to my tour guides. Here we are.
Yes, hello.
We've got Andy and we've got Marcel.
Yeah, welcome to the tour. My name is Marcel Raats. I'm Dutch specialist at Philips Horticulture LED Solutions. And we will show you in a while the greenhouse.
Yeah, thanks, Marcel. I'm Andy. I'm from Grodan, and together with Philips Horticulture LED Solutions, we're funding this innovative research trial here at Botany BV in Horst, Southern Netherlands.
And before we go on, we would also like to thank our partners. You can see them all here on the truck, the Amalan, Contact Linux, we have Wireless Value here, we have Ridder, and we have Nomic Food Agriculture actively participating with their advices in this trial.
So before we go into this year's trial, I thought it'd be nice to give you all a quick recap on what we accomplished last year. So on the screen now should be the main conclusions and takeaways, but we'll just, between me and Marcel, we'll just summarize them for you. Marcel.
Yeah, indeed. So first of all, I would like to say that last season was the first season of a 3-year cycle where Grodan and Signify are joining forces to have this interesting trial where we would like to see in a full LED trial how low we can go with energy input and still keeping good fruit quality and good fruit weight.
So we, of course, set ourselves some very ambitious targets, and that was to realize a 40% reduction in total heat input compared to reference growers with a similar crop here in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so saving energy in this kind of trials with those ambitious targets, of course, it's talking about intensive screening. Intensive screening means also humidity. So walking through all the options to see how we could tackle that issue of the humidity. We came out to install also a dehumidification system, Amalan, to realize in the best possible way the target.
So one of our questions was, with a lower heat input, with double screens, with LED lights, with lower pipe temperatures, and with a completely different radiant heat input into the greenhouse, how could we stimulate sufficient water and nutrient uptake to realize yield and quality?
Yeah, indeed, by experience, we knew that in a low heat full LED crop, the water uptake could be probably more around 80 milliliters per mole of light. Some tea, it was 120. So working now with the dehumidification system, we said, well, this will stimulate for sure the evaporation. So theoretically, we could go somewhere around 110. And indeed, last year, for example, we realized around 115 milliliter per mole of light water uptake. And so this is something we will review again, of course, also this season.
Thanks, Marcel. So we also played around with the nutrition, particularly the nitrate concentration and potassium. We know from previous trials that nitrate, of course, and potassium stimulate total nutrient uptake. Yet if we increase the nitrate levels in the feed, we also create more leaf area index. More leaf area index means more transpiration. More transpiration means more humidity, which we have to get rid of in the greenhouse. So we really played around with adjusting the feed recipe, particularly working with low nitrate concentrations at the start of the crop. And we continued that investigation again this year, our focus being on plant balance, fruit size, and bricks.
Yeah, and also in the same context, we didn't want to over-irrigate, of course, because it's a kind of waste of energy. You create too much humidity, which you have to get rid of. So in the end, we saw in the last year trial that in fact it was over 30 weeks, only 8% drain realized. And with this integrated holistic approach, mentioning all the things we saw before, we realized over 50% saving on heat input.
Yeah, so we learned a lot, and we, as we said before, we're taking those learnings into the trial 2, which is running from September to April 2023 to 2024, 2025. Marcel.
Yeah.
Shall we go inside?
After this introduction, let's go and see. Yep.
Okay, welcome to Department 72 here at Botany BV in Wars. So the variety we have chosen is Italian from Basf Nunums. We chose this variety for three main reasons. First is we wanted to focus our trials on the premium cherry truss segment. The second reason was that this variety is rugose resistant. That was a very important thing that we took into consideration. And the third and final issue was it's a naturally open generative plant type, so ideally suited to a low heat input trial. So these plants, if we start down here, they were propagated at WPK as 3 headers. Delivery date to our greenhouse was the 26th September. Planting date was the same. They were flowering on the 27th of September. Plant density is 4.1 plants per square meter initially. We have made a plan using Philips Crop Sim, so where we're matching light and fruit load. So our plan is to increase to 4.6 in week 1, and then to make a second increase in week 4 to take us to 5.0. I stress that is a plan, and we are constantly assessing the situation. We took the first harvests last week. This week we have harvested around about 0.65 kilogram per square meter. Our average fruit size is 12.5, almost 13 grams. Bricks is around high 9s to 10. We are pruning on 14 fruits per truss. Currently today, we are flowering around the 12th cluster. Harvest speed over the last 3 weeks on average is around 1.4 clusters per week. As I said outside, this trial is due to end week 17, 2025. But the prognosis of the plan, if we took this to its natural end, we would target to realize 34 kilograms per square meter. Marcel.
Yeah, let's have a look also at temperature and why. We all know in a full lead crop, the steering should be on the generative side. So temperature is definitely part of that. In this trial, the primary heat source is the growing pipe. You can see here. Well, you cannot feel it, but I can tell you this is now around 38 degrees, close to the maturing clusters now, to keep the speed on the maturity of the plant, so to unload the plant in that way also. The drill pipe is very low and is really like a secondary kind of backup heating system. On the screen, you will see probably the temperature graph over these last days. So Benno can show it now. So it's very important to start up the heating already like 1 hour before you start to have the lights on. In our case, it's 11 p.m. we start the lights. So you can imagine from 10 and on, you can start to heat up, warm up, so that the plant temperature will be correct. It's now average 20.3. Last year we were higher. So you can say, well, maybe that's not a way of saving also. Out of that very low heat input, what we can do thanks to intensive screening, we would think that we will consume not more than 0.3, 0.4 cubic meter of gas per week. And that would mean for this cycle of 30 weeks, sorry, it will not go over 11 cubic meter, which is more or less the target also this year. Now I think we can also talk about the light. What do we install here? Different from last year, where we had a static spectrum, which was the classic tomato spectrum, deep red, white, low blue, 5% blue, 5% green, 90% red. This year we can do a trial. Why? Because we have now the Green Power Top Light Force 2.0, which is a new model that are in our assortment and it's successfully introduced. Why? Because it's color controllable. Means that in this case we have here a 3-channel module. You would say maybe why 3, because the 3 channels, one is white, the other one is red, and the other one is the far red. And far red we recognize we do not really need it in tomato crop, but we have it here because in future there can be other crops here also. This greenhouse. 350 micromole installed, pretty high. Brings again flexibility, but in practice we will use for this trial 300 micromole. Through the GrowWise control system, you can play also with the dimming. I will come back to that later. Also, there's even a kind of automatic way to use that. But you can also imagine starting the lighting period, first hour, for example, at 50%. Benno will, in the meantime, show also the graph on the screen. I explain then more the dynamic steering. You can already have a look. I think Daniela filmed it already. On the left side here, you see where the 2 channels are on. You clearly can see the white part and the red part. Right side, which we call the dynamic lighting schedule, we have now only the red channel on. And why do we do this? Well, for now we do it on time. As a test, we say from 10 to 4, you can only have your red channel on. And why would you do that? It's more efficient color. So the efficiency will go up. You can create the same parcel of light with less power input. So that is part of the whole trial. Again, this is a way to save on your energy. There are different possibilities to use even this model, different options. You can think about boosting, putting the white channel higher. You will have a more white light so that people working in the greenhouse will have a more clear, more easy view, you can say. Another option is also that you can use it, what we call like a bumblebee light. It's something where you can give a boost to the white channel. So it means more blue, more green, because we know that if you have over 35 micromole blue and green light, your light sum, that bumblebees will be more active. They will like it more. So the thing is, in the difficult time of the year, midwinter, this can help to have a proper pollination also. Another thing, well, in the dynamic slide you have see now on your screen, so the left side is the static way of steering the crop, which is, well, you can say the classical way. I introduced only 1 hour of dimming in the beginning of the crop. So you see the graph is over the year by week. And on the right side, you give the same light sum, but bringing in the variance between the different spectra. And for the reasons I mentioned previously, so it gives you kind of an idea of the possibilities you can have over the day and over the season. Because, for example, the red you can also keep and switch off your white light once the outside radiation is bringing enough green and blue light already. So that gives you the different schedule of the season. And we think we can have like 3-4% of energy saving doing that. So which is doesn't sound like a lot, but if you have 10 hectares of energy to pay, I think it can make a difference also. Last thing I would like to mention about the light also is that we work here, well, we will do trials with the DLI planner for Ridder. What does it mean? The DLI planner is basically a tool where you set the target of the DLI light sum. Then out of that, you can define the starting time for your light and then also the end time. And you can fine tune it with some different settings. And in the end, the system will define if you need your light or not. So again, the target is to save more energy because the lights will be switched off when there's enough daylight available, for example. I think for the light, it's now we can go to the humidification with Andy.
Okay, let's go back to Andy. Andy, back to you.
Okay, welcome to the gable end of the greenhouse. Really now describing on high level the dehumidification system. So the whole process starts with, we've got a chimney. If Daniela can pan onto it, is that Perspex tube. And that the top of that chimney is located around 15 centimeters below the LED lights. And there is an outlet fan that is sucking essentially warm, moist greenhouse air into that chimney and into the essentially heat exchanger. Yeah? There is an inlet fan that is drawing in cold, dry air from outside. And effectively, those two airflows cross each other. They don't mix, they cross each other. And they exchange energy. Yeah? So we expel warm, moist air, and we bring in warm, dry air. This year, a nice addition is the heat block. And with the heat block, we are able to, if needed, heat that air re-entering the greenhouse. Now, the capacity that we have for heating is probably 1 degree above greenhouse temperature, which we are using now. And essentially, that warm, dry air is then blown back into the greenhouse in through these sleeves. And Benno, our moderator, should be showing you a schematic diagram now of how this looks. But essentially, this dry air is being blown through the sleeves below the gutters. Now, we have a small greenhouse here, 260 square meters. So we have essentially one sleeve every other gutter. In a commercial situation, you probably have one sleeve per gutter. Yeah. Now, it's very important, of course, that we realize a even temperature profile from the gable to gable, or also from top to bottom. And to ensure that we've done that, we've inserted some temperature and humidity sensors, as well as cameras, which Marcel will talk to you about now.
Yes, talking about sensors in this trial, I think it's really crucial having a lot of data available to see what we are doing. It's part of the test, of course, and to analyze those data, just have the visual impression of the crop, which still is important, but we want to analyze and see what's going on with all the settings we have. So apart from the climate box, I would like just to show some kind of sensors. I will point them a little bit. So first one you see here is the slab scale, and that is including a drain sensor and drip sensor. So why do we do that? Because this will tell you about having now more precise idea of the irrigation quantity and the drain quantity. Out of that, we know exactly what uptake by the plant is, and we can follow, of course, what is going on if you change, for example, screens, or if you increase your temperatures. Another thing we can show also over there, we have sensors here in place from one of our partners, Wireless Value. And this is for the vertical temperature distribution. You see it
I don't
over
see it.
there.
Yeah.
So, and you will see also one of the graphs now on your screen. And why do we want to know that? Well, in a full LED crop, we easily know that people say, well, yeah, the heads of the plants are getting too cold. So what should I do? Well, what is the right position of the growing pipe? Do I need two? So we want just to see here by having different sensors at different heights and following close to the plant, what is exactly the temperature pattern. Already on the graph, you can see, for example, the middle and the top temperature is almost the same. It's almost overlapping. Where the bottom one, you see some small differences with the two other ones. But it's still too early to make any conclusion, but I think this is very useful. Another way to follow plant temperature this time, because before we were talking about greenhouse temperature. So if you look here up, we have two cameras installed following plant temperature, stomata cameras, and it's giving us an ID from the top to the bottom, so to the cluster to be harvested, how the temperature distribution is in the plant. And why do we want to know that? It's very crucial for different reasons. How is the distribution from the assimilates going, for example? But also you can steer better probably the maturity of the ripening clusters. And you want also to have your head warm enough to keep the plant growing enough.
What's the next topic, Andy?
Yeah.
Walking over, walking over. Okay, what are we talking about next?
So let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing with the irrigation strategy and also nutrient strategy. Apologies if I look a little bit red, but the Philips dynamic lighting has just switched. Yeah, the issues of live TV. So if Daniela looks at the slab for the trial, we're using Grodan GT Master slab. It's 10 centimeters high. We have 3 blocks. Each block, of course, with a 3 header, so 9 heads per slab. The slab volume is about 8.2 litres per square metre, which is average for the Netherlands. Importantly, and it's nice to pan in here, we've only cut 1 drain hole per slab, and which is our standard advice, and we've done this directly across the width. The way that we're structuring the irrigation strategies, I'm working with percentages of my substrate volume. And currently I'm steering using information provided by my Grodan sensor, which is this blue box. And that's giving me information about the water content and EC in the slab. Maybe Benno's got that results of our strategy displayed now. So we've been extremely generative in our steering. So our current strategy is we start the first irrigation 4 hours after the lights have turned on. Now in real money, if we're working with joules, yeah, given our light capacity, that's around 250 joules. So if you come to the summertime, you'd be starting around 80 or 100 joules, yeah, to give you an indication. And I'm using 4% of my substrate volume for that first irrigation, which is around 328 mil per square meter. The next irrigation is coming 2 hours later. So first one is coming, lights are coming on now at 11 o'clock. So my first irrigation is at 3. My next irrigation is at 5. Yeah, and then 2 hours later. From 8 o'clock, I'm irrigating then every hour until 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Now that is a total around 9 irrigation sessions in the day. And the delivery is around, well, it is 2.5 litres per square meter. Now, if you go back to what we were discussing with Marcel about the uptake per mole of light, and assuming that my uptake is around 115 mil per mole, and I've got 19 moles of light, for example, you can see that I'm really matching irrigation supply to plant demand. And actually, once again, of course, you'll see from the graphic, the water content is stable and the EC is stable. And of course, we're realizing the result, drain is not our goal. The result is a very, very, once again, low drain volume. You can do the maths. Yeah. We also mentioned a little bit about the nutrition. So if you can see either side of me, we're using two irrigation ECs. So the first EC that we're using is 3.8, which is probably standard for a lighted crop. And the second EC treatment in this greenhouse, you could spot the difference if you can, is EC of 2.5. And we're doing this for two reasons. With EC 3.8, yes, it is more generative, but by definition, I also limit total nutrient uptake. Yeah. Yes, I increase dry matter in the crop, but I do that for positive effects on bricks, but I also do that at the expense of fruit size. Yeah. So what we have done in the two treatments, we both started with around 13 millimole of nitrate from planting until now. Now that has just been increased in both treatments to around 16 millimole. Yeah. Remember, this is with no drain. Now, importantly, we're working on fruit size and also bricks. So we are really manipulating the nitrate and the potassium concentrations. Yeah. So in EC 2.5, I am irrigating with a lower nitrate level in the feed, which is a positive impact on my bricks, also delivering me fruit size. Yeah? So we are learning and understanding of getting the best of both worlds between bricks and fruit size, stimulating more total nutrient uptake versus what growers would tend to be doing as standard practice. Yeah. But remember, we're dealing with a very low heat input system. And of course, we're taking guidance from our nutrition guru, Ruud Kaarsmaker, from one of our partners, Norbert Gronagro Control. So I think that's the end of our very brief tour.
Okay.
To the Q&A.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Marcel. So let me walk back so that we can take over for, oh, shoot.
And back a little bit screening.
Wait, because I'm turning my camera now so they can see you.
I'd like to come back also on the screens in use supplied by Lidder. So new screens, more insulating, again with the idea of having less energy input. So on top we have a new blackout screen, aluminium foil on top and white on the bottom, and then we have another new energy screen, both again more insulating, but also the energy screen still with a very good light transmission. Intensive screening comes with this trial, I would say, because if you want to keep the temperature on level without having a huge heat input and having this dehumidification system, it's not a big issue to keep the screens closed as much as possible. So as an example, last year we managed to have the energy screen for 9 weeks on the row closed. And now this week, last week, I have to say, as an example, we had the blackout screens closed for 16 hours per day and energy screens also already for 23 hours per day. We have to learn to manage this because more insulation means also you keep easily higher temperatures. So it's just a matter of learning how to steer with those screens. And I think it has a lot of additional value also for this trial once you know how to use it in the best possible way.
Yeah, yeah. In addition to that, I think the blackout screen when closed is saving 70% energy, and the climate screen when closed is around 49% energy. Yeah? So when they're closed, they're very insulated. Yeah. This is why we're very aggressive with the irrigation strategy.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Marcel. So I think for now it's then time to go over to the Q&A. Before I we go over to the questions, I would like to thank you for attending if you're running out of time and have other plans. But of course, feel free to still stay online with us so you can hear what other questions people are asking. Let me remind you about the recording. We will also send that to you tomorrow so that if you have colleagues maybe that you want to show this to, you can show that tomorrow. And as a last question, we would like to ask you to sign up for our community if you haven't done so yet, so that we can keep you updated frequently and make sure that you receive the latest information and also invites to our online or offline events. And please note down in your calendar that on January 22nd, we will have our first live event here at Botany in Horst. So if it's possible for you to attend, please feel free to put a placeholder in your calendar. The invitation will follow before Christmas. Thank you. Any questions? I think let's move over to Benno. Benno is the guy that makes sure that all technical issues are being solved, and he is also the moderator of all the questions. So Benno, are there any questions?
Hi there. Well, on the chat at the moment I see no questions. So if you have a question, just put them in the chat. But we already received a few via the email. And the first question is, if I don't have a dehumidification system, how much of what you are doing here can I translate on what I am doing in practice?
Guess that's one for both of us.
Okay.
For me, the most obvious thing would be attention to the irrigation strategy. So there's a lot that can be delivered by plant steering on start-stop times, volume, frequency. Drain. Remember, drain is not your goal, it's the result of what you do. And also nutrition, so the combination of irrigation and nutrition, is almost not being discussed in terms of plant steering at this point in time, but it can play a huge and important role.
Yeah, of course. Well, meshing dehumidification system, you have to find different ways to get rid of your humidity, which will anyhow be created in your crop. Or especially, you want to have your screens more close, having the full LED crop. You have less the radiation heat. So I think it's all about looking very well at the way how you want to bring in your heat. So you can think about two growing pipes or different solutions. And especially, I think really it's about the screening strategy. When do I want to gap? So you have tools for that also to look to steer them on greenhouse humidity or in and outside radiation. So I think those tools can be very handy and will give you a much better insight view what's going on in the crop. And then I think also again there the plant temperature, like in this trial, is important to follow, because it will tell you what is happening, especially in the top of the plant when you start to gap or not. So I think it's still feasible, but it's just, of course, you will not reach the same low heat input as what we have here.
Okay, thanks, guys. Benno, in the meantime,
second question. You mentioned only one drain hole. My advisor advised me to cut more on both sides and between the blocks. What is the best practice?
Well, for Grodan stone wool, the best practice is, as I just said, one drain hole per slab, of course at the lowest point in the direction of the drain. Maybe if my cameraman can follow me, I'll explain.
Camera woman, huh?
So we have the drain here, yeah. The drain holes here. So when I look at these the drippers, we have one dripper per block, so 1.37 square meter. The most efficient dripper on this irrigation system, so the one that's given me most control over the EC, is of course the one at the end, because it is displacing water much further in the slab than this dripper. Yeah. So with a low drain volume, I always expect the drain EC to be very high. If I cut drain holes everywhere, all I get is essentially my irrigation water running straight out of the slab. Yeah, and I get very little or less control over the EC in the slab. Yeah, so for Grodan, one drain hole per slab.
Okay, I hope that answers the person's question.
Yeah, I have a third question. In the dynamic steering strategy, what is your estimated energy saving compared to the static one?
Well, we made indeed a theoretical calculation since this first year trial, of course, with this way of steering. Well, and I mentioned it already, but it could be over like 3-4% of the total energy consumption, of our electricity consumption, I should say, for the lamps. Again, in this trial, it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you have a huge acreage, it's easily making money. And I think we can have a more precise idea of the end of this trial, but also in practice, we see most of the growers are also already starting to use this. So with all this feedback, I think we can give the more precise numbers even. Just maybe to add is that, like if this is a 3-channel model, like you can use in Cucumber or they use in Cucumber, so then you have the same principle. Switching of the far right channel is much more beneficial, and then you go up to higher savings, like give me 7, 8, 9%. Again, to be confirmed. But makes sense because then you when it's possible 2 channels and you only keep 1.
And I think what is nice in this trial is the cooperation they have with our partners. So,
Fish.
you know, I know that Marcel and his colleagues are working with RIDA, who are controlling this greenhouse, to put all the automation controls for these new lights in place, so the DLI and the dimming. So, yeah. Thanks to RIDA.
Okay. Benno, tell me, are there any additional questions that came in?
Can you hear me?
No? Now we can, but
Yes.
before we couldn't. So
So,
are there
yeah.
any additional questions? That was my
My
question.
headset gave problems. Noel, I have another question. With your screens so much closed, do you see any problems with pollination?
One for Marcel.
Yeah, well, I can indeed answer to that one. Well, here, no, not yet. The real winter time should still start, and the real period where we have the screens even more closed is coming now, I would say. But in previous trials, we did not really have big issues. But I also have to say, well, 2 things. We would like to do the test with what we call the bumblebee light, as explained previously, where you increase your blue and green level of light. That would help, but we can see it, well, it's in one greenhouse. So if we see something, it will be on the right side, the dynamic part. The other thing is, of course, yeah, keep always a good eye also on the humidity, which is here not an issue. But in practice, we know that is most of the time not only the spectrum or the reason that is LED light, but you see very often also combined with higher humidity levels. Yeah, and people will more easily open than the screens to have the UV light also, of course. But the whole bumblebee light thing, we will also see in practice. Some growers definitely would like to test it. So we're thinking about making some plans for that also. Yeah, the last thing is also true that this is a very small compartment compared to a commercial situation. So we can say it's maybe doing that test not fully representative, because bumblebees can easily fly like 30-35 meters from the hives, even if the conditions are not optimal. As soon as you go in bigger greenhouses with having rows of 100-meter long, then I think it's getting more and more important. So that is exactly now what we are testing. And now with the higher light levels already installed in the Netherlands, growing easily now more, even close to 300 micromole. You can imagine also your blue and green part of the spectrum is increasing, and it's making the bumblebees better than when people were using the lights at 220 micromole, for example. So somehow we expect also some positive effects from that already.
Thank you, Marcel. And probably that's also something that we could look back to when we are a bit further in the trial, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. Benno, any additional?
Yeah. Another question. What is the current flowering speed of the crop? And what was flowering speed from the beginning?
I think I mentioned that when I was talking about the variety. So the average flowering speed of over the last 3 weeks is around 1.4 clusters per week. Yeah, and that's fairly consistent. Yeah, so of course we require speed. This is the whole density discussion. Yeah, I can't have speed and density. So, you know, right now we've got great flowering speed. Density is at 4.1. Yeah, and we need to maintain that and produce the number of clusters working on speed. Yeah, so again, I think the harvesting speed is around 56 days as well right now, which is also quite good. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you can't probably see them, if you come back to the crop, and I don't know how it looks, but if you look to the development of the clusters coming down the plant, it's absolutely perfect. Yeah. And we've got a very, you probably can't, a very fast colouring also within the cluster. So everything is about speed.
Okay, thank you. Back to Benno.
Another question, Daniela. What is your target set point for humidity and how varies it over the day?
I think there was one graph in the presentation, but we can go back to that. I think during the dark night it is 3.3, and then over we of course we go up in the lit lights is 3.7, and then well over the day it's also depending if you have to open your screens and windows, of course, then you can go up a little bit higher. So I think we are around, what was it, would it be like 80-85% max humidity in the greenhouse. And we have a very, now from 3 weeks on, we have a quite very stable humidity levels in the greenhouse, let's say, and that will probably continue now. And that is maybe worth to mention that having all these 3 tools, so you can steer really your temperature, humidity, and well, your light and your nutrition, well, all separately. It's an amazing tool, I would say. And we're doing this trial, and we go sometimes maybe extreme. For those who will come, you can see more in detail. We didn't went up now to look at the heads of the plants, but there's much more to say, I think, and then we can explain also more in detail the tools and how we use it really, and what the effect is on the plant. But again, we are in a trial situation. It's not that we recommend what we do is the perfect setup for any grower, of course.
But I think the main question is, Marcel, whatever we ask for in whatever period, we get it from the active dehumidification system. So it really is creating a very stable both temperature and humidity within the climate.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you. Benno.
Yeah. Next question. What will be the total electricity input per square meter end of the crop and also mole?
Well, for example, last year, we work on or presenting the figures in kilowatt hours per kilo of fruit. So in this full lead low heat input system last year, the figure was 18 kilowatt hours per kilo of fruit. And I think if you contrast that to a traditional Senti system, it's half. Yeah, so that Senti system would have been 36 kilowatt hours per kilo of fruit.
Yeah, but keep in mind also that last year we were using on average light-wise 250 micromole, 300 micromole, so the electricity consumption may be higher, but now having DLI planner and the possibility to switch off the less efficient channels. So we don't know exactly, of course, how we will end there, but it's very interesting to see, of course, if we can stay at least at the same level or not reach more than that. But on the other hand, the main thing in the end is the kilowatt hours used per kilo produced of product. So we will also harvest more with the 300 micromole used. At least that's the target. So
yeah. Probably I don't remember if I said it, but the air energy system effectively cost us 10 kilowatt hours per square meter to run. So for the whole trial, so the equivalent of around a cubic meter of gas. So our total heat input was around 10.7 cubic meters, and we compared that to a reference grower with something around 22. Yeah, so that's where our 50% energy saving came from.
Thank you. Benno.
That was the last question.
Okay. Any last questions? Please fill it in now in your chat. And if not, then I would like to thank you very much for attending this first webinar that we're organizing together with our partners. I would like to thank Andy and of course Marcel and Benno behind the scenes for all the work that has been done the last hour. If you haven't done so, please sign up for our community so we have frequent updates being sent to you. You may receive the recording anytime shortly after this meeting. And thanks for now and see you next time.